MTBO is a combination of MTB riding and map skills. A good rider with poor map understanding as well as slow rider with an excellent navigation are probably not gonna get high in the result list, at least not in the elite categories. It's important to cultivate both skills. The riding is usually not neglected, but with the map it's a bit more complicated. It's understandable. Map training is not as easy to do as get on a bike and ride. You need the map, you need someone who'll set some courses for you, and preferably an unknown terrain. That's where the spring training camps comes to the play and are very handy. But before we'll talk more about this year's spring training camp, let's hear what our teammate Veronika Kubinova, Finnish coach Mika Häkkinen and Needy can say about MTBO specific training. How important is map training versus physical training?
I think it should be the same as it's during a race. If you imagine your performance, how much percent you spend with physical performance and how much percent you spend with map skills. So if you imagine that, then I think you should spend the same time with map skills. And I guess that's the problem of many teams, that they are more focused on physical training than on map skills. So for me it should be like 50-50, maybe map skills even more.
I think that the map training is always important, and MTBO. For elite athletes I would say that it's like 50-50 ratio, but for juniors and yacht I would say that it's more like 70-30 for the map training. And that's because in junior category, it's always the map mistakes which matters and which help you to be in the better positions. But as everybody gets better in the map, then the physical skills come into place, and the one with the better combination is the winner, at least for the day.
Does the map training have a special place in your calendar?
I think it's important to be in touch with map during whole year, but also it's great to have some breaks. And to be in touch with map means that you should do some trainings during winter as well. For example, I spend a lot of time with running, so night orienteering during winter is perfect. And for me it's working with map in different way, but it's working for MTBO later as well. So yes, it's important to do orienteering whole year, but you should realize where to start, like focused map skills on MTBO, because you also need breaks from that, because if you do it too much then you get tired of it and you lost your concentration.
Over the winter I do mostly physical training, except for some football races or football trainings, but specific MTBO trainings I do mostly at the beginning of the MTBO season, which is like March, April, when I attend some MTBO camp, which gives me a lot of map trainings at the beginning of the season, so I can know how and I can adjust my mapping skills to my pace, to my physical abilities for that year. And then during the whole year I try to do as many MTBO races as possible. Basically that's all I'm doing over the year.
How does it feel for you to be on a map after a long break?
In
the spring?
As I said earlier, I usually do like a lot of cycling in the winter, and then in the spring I do some MTBO training, so this is exactly that situation. And like in the first few trainings I tend to get lost quite easily. I make quite a big mistakes, like mistakes for minutes, and I really cannot coordinate my thinking and my physical abilities. But that's the thing which improves greatly, and over 1 week of map trainings, let's say, I'm pretty much calibrated.
You are trying many map exercises. What is your favorite one?
For me, the most effective and my favorite training is I call it white paper. And it's like that you look into a map then you do a physical loop, and then you draw what you remember. You can look like 10 seconds and then go, but you probably won't remember much. So it's up to you to choose the time when you are looking into map, like if it's worth it to spend more time looking at the map, or it's worth it to just write and sometimes look at the map. So for me it's like look carefully and then write. So this is the best combination how to realize what you actually remember, what you should remember, and how your brain works during physical activity. So that's the best training, I guess. And there's one more thing: when you have many map trainings in a row, and for example during this week in Portugal we had a lot of middle distances and sprint distances, and I think it's great to get yourself out of your comfort zone and try something different, not do middle distance every single day. So for example with our team we tried some different things, for example must start training when we put some forkings in the map, or we tried some memory training, also some intensity training. So it's great to change the training a little bit during this time of the year when you still have time for real races and you can play with your training. So do, for example, contour training or must start training or memory training and so on. There are plenty of them, so you can easily change the normal middle distance into some special training which puts you out of your comfort zone.
I'm here with Mika Häkkinen, Finnish MTBO coach. Last year was his first year as a coach of the Finnish MTBO team, and he did quite a good job. The Finnish team had really great results last year on the World Championships, and he also made quite a nice summary of his training methods and all the preparations he did for the last World Championships. He put it on Facebook group, you can find it there. So I would like to ask you, what are your preparations for this year's World Championships?
Okay, rather similar. So we have a quite same type of sort of camp schedule. So now we are here in Portugal. We were here actually last year as well. Mm-hmm. World Champs will be in Czech, so we will have a camp there in sort of a July time frame. So in that sense, quite rather similar. Mm-hmm. What comes to the amount of camp and trainings. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you do some special trainings before the beginning of the season?
Well, last year I put some sort of special trainings. For example, this type of small mass starts with the team. So this type of camp relay where we get this type of 5-6 mass starts per athlete. Mm-hmm. So these type of trainings we still do always in the camps. And now here in Portugal we are more leaning towards the ready-made trainings. So San Charles has done a great job with the trainings, and we have also these 5 races here. Some sprints, basically 2 sprints in between the race weekends we have done as own camp races. Mm-hmm. So one was this type of a double or duo sprint with a mass start with a sort of 2 athletes at the same time. So getting a bit sort of an man-to-man or women-to-women type of training. And then another was also sprint with the starting time. So a bit this type of race-like training.
Mm-hmm. What are the expectations from this Portuguese MTBO camp? What do you expect to be the outcome from this?
Yeah, it's a bit sort of two-folded. We have 2 elite athletes and then we have more younger ones. So for the elite athletes it's more like putting the hours in, putting the climbs in, and then again they have more routines already. So it's more like still this type of, let's say, doing the basis, doing this type of core training. And then again for youngsters it's more like having this type of terrain bank from these type of terrains, preparations for what's coming in the Portugal European Champs. And then again more like having those much courses, much controls, much route choices, so building the routines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. At the beginning of the season, is for most of your team more important like the physical part or the map met trainings? Like,
Yeah. Well, actually, we have chosen last year and now again Portugal because of the map training. So you can do the physical stuff well with the trainer in Finland or in Tenerife or in Mallorca. But then again, the reason why we are here is actually the maps. So doing the map training during the winter. So we have rather heavy winter. So basically, we can do only this type of urban sprints and with the snowy or icy ground. So this is something that we can't do in Finland, and that's why we choose this one. So we are also taking a Easter camp in Estonia, and it's before we have sort of a solid ground in Finland, and there we will have a sort of 4 race-like trainings and 4 easier trainings. So basically simulating what's coming there in the European Champs.
yeah. When the season is just around the corner, it is the last chance to get into map shape. In spring, there are many possibilities where to do so. The traditional option is the Danish MTBO camp, but as we stayed in Portugal and Spain over the winter, it was rather far for us. Luckily, there was the Portuguese MTBO camp this year. We gathered in a beautiful part of Portugal called Alentejo. Jean-Charles Laleve made some then map trainings in between 2 racing weekends in Portugal and Spain, so the toughest people could have some 15 trainings/races in just 9 days. For us, it was a bit too much, so we saved some maps for later use.
As Veronica said, it was many middle and sprint distances with some long distances in between in the typical Portuguese hilly terrain, so we got a chance to get used to the steep gravel climbings, which are gonna be there for sure in the European Championships. And all of that was on a good up-to-date maps, so we didn't have to worry about some changes in the forest or something like that. In the forest there were no controls. Most of the trainings we did with the Usilingo app, which makes sounds when you pass the control, so you know you punched it. Thanks to that, the organization of a training camp is much easier, and for the training purposes is just good enough. So thanks to everyone for a great camp. We really enjoyed it, and we hope we are as ready as we can be for the European Champs. See you there or somewhere else.
Whoa.